Felix Sharp out of retirement to talk about college football. All that and more when we return.
Welcome to the Devy Devotional Podcast, a show devoted to college prospect evaluation with a fantasy football focus. With your hosts, John Arrington, Aaron Wilcox, and Andy Starr. This podcast brings you actionable strategies and player-driven analysis for your Devy, C2C, and Dynasty leagues. Let's dive in.
Let's dive into Cornerstone ranks. Welcome into the Devy Devotional, where we stay devoted to Devy. I'm your host, John Arrington, joined as always by Aaron Wilcox and Andy Starr. But we have a very special guest tonight. Like I said, we did something right because we finally brought Felix Sharp Review on Twitter, back from the depths, back from retirement. He had to get on a mic because I guess Andy did something to piss him off. And I always do something to piss him off. But our very good friend, our best friend, if you will, Felix Sharp is here tonight. And so we are excited to have that. Felix, I know you hate when people ask, how are you doing? So I'm going to ask you, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Okay, we can go into it. Is such a lazy opening question for a podcast. Any podcast out there, no offense, but how you doing tonight? You don't hear Jimmy Kimmel or any of these late night hosts start an interview with how you doing tonight. Super lazy. You start, and that was a creative writing minor. You start the story in the middle. So that's why, just a terrible opening, John.
Andy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I appreciate Felix coming on here, the consummate professional. We need that energy, and it makes sense. Because every time you ask me, I just go, "Oh, it's going good," and then we just move on. Yeah. So it makes sense. It's partially my fault. I need to give you something to lead into. Say "Hey, this is what's going on," and then you can ask me about that. If we're doing a Jimmy Kimmel style opening.
There we go.
But
there's a reason that Shakespeare started plays with a dead body. But do you all realize that? Shakespeare started every play with a dead body or blood, and it was to get the audience's attention. Shakespeare didn't say, "Oh, how's the audience doing tonight?" They started the plays with blood.
Well, speaking of dead bodies, I don't know, because normally we don't have four people on here, so I don't know if the viewers are going to be able to see it or not, but I do have Garrett Nussmeier behind us on the background. So I just wanted to make sure that, at least the listeners and the viewers know that Garrett Nussmeier is on the background. Technically he's still alive, but not for football purposes. So I just want to make sure of that. Aaron, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing tonight. I'm just going to say, are you excited to have Felix here?
Oh, absolutely. Half and half, Campus Decatur guys here. That is great. Felix Sharp, of course, one of the OGs over there. But no, we're just happy to have you on as our guest here, Felix. And yeah, hopefully, between the keep, trade, cut talk and whatever pressing news we want to cover here, it'll be a lively and exciting episode.
Absolutely, it should be. So we had planned on doing a Cornerstone rankings kind of summit or whatever you want to call it, and we probably still will. But Andy had actually posted something. I guess it was it the freshman wide receiver tiers, and I had a couple that I disagreed with, but for the most part, I like the list that he put out. Andy can give us his list here in a little bit, but I guess it really caught Felix's eye enough so that he wanted to at least jump on and discuss it, if not do an entire pod about it. So we don't bring guests on that often, but obviously Felix is one of our favorites. So we had to bring him on and just discuss these freshman wide receivers, because I'll tell you what, we got really excited, and by we, I mean a royal we of the Devy community got really excited about the 2027 class. you haven't heard nearly as much about the 2028 class, but we definitely have had some hype. A lot of people getting really excited about Malachi Tony, even though, I'm going to sit here and try and pump some brakes on that guy a little bit. But, we have a lot of other names here. Andy, do you want to give us your list, or do you want to, just like go one by one there?
No, well, so the top three, I think, were the ones that I feel really good about, and that's DeCorian Moore, Andrew Marsh, and Malachi Tony. And then, I listed off a few more. But the one that Felix texted me about, and the reason why I wanted to bring it on, because I told him afterwards, I was like, that, I don't even feel as strongly about that take as, John and maybe even Aaron do. And it was Desmond Roebuck I have at fifth in like a third tier. And then in the tier below him, I have Latsier Brooks. And also I have Dallas Wilson below Roebuck as well. But it's sort of in that same tier. And, like I said, when Austin actually commented on this too, and I said, it's the first three for me and then everybody else, but all these guys have the potential to be very good, even great players and potentially NFL players. But it's the top three right now that I'm feeling really the most confident about. But I don't want to misquote Felix, but after I posted this list, he said Roebuck is, quote, at best a complimentary collegiate wide receiver, which, like I said, I don't feel as strongly about Roebuck as John and maybe even Aaron. So I was like, I asked him if I could quote him, and he said he doesn't mind chopping it up with anybody. So I was like, well, let's just get him on the pod to talk about it. So here we are.
All right, Felix, what is it about Roebuck? And trust me, it seems like the whole campus2canton.com crew, the C2C boys, as I like to call them, have always been out on Roebuck, and they seem to be slow to turn or come around on Roebuck. In fact, the Back to Devy boys have gone as far as to say that they don't even like Roebuck as much as his other freshman counterpart, and I cannot remember the guy's name right now, because he's essentially worthless and has done nothing as of yet, and so there's a reason why I don't even remember his name. But
Raiden Vines, right?
Yeah, and so I wonder, what is it? Is it like I'm not trying to put words in your mouth either, but is it a slow to come around because of previous biases or anything, or is it just that you see something that maybe we're not seeing?
Well, there's no bias with regard to Desmond Roebuck. I don't think I heard anybody talk about this player coming into the season. So there is no bias or ranking or, preconception with regard to this particular player. I will say, however, let me lay a foundation here. I think that in a lot of communities you have, for example, I'm in the finance community now. And so you have some people that believe Bitcoin is the only thing that you can consider, and that's what you have to invest in. And then you have real estate people that think real estate is the only thing that you can invest in. On the other hand, ETFs or stocks or equities are the only thing that you can invest in. And there are always these and it's funny, it's in every community. You can go to the fitness community, you can go to, like, in our community, in the fantasy space, especially in the Devy space, it's either analytics or film. And I've just never believed in that. Like, I will check a player on film and then say, all right, does his numbers match up? Or a player might stand out analytically, and does their film match up to what I'm saying? And with regard to Roebuck, I think that he is a player that if you are analytically based, he's like, oh, he stands out. But then when you watch him on film, there's nothing. He is a small slot wide receiver who's not particularly explosive. And for those types of players, they have to be elite, laterally. They have to change direction. 5'10", 175. That's a fine body type. But who are the types of players who have succeeded at that body type? Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, players like that. And he's not that. I think that, John, there are some of these players who will put up production but don't have NFL skill sets that you are going to be fooled by. Dorian Singer is one. A player like Tylan Wallace a few years ago at Oklahoma State, a 5'11" contested catcher. That's how he won. It's funny because Dorian Singer was a very similar player in his own right. Somebody like Terrell Harris, or, how about any of the wide receivers playing in a Josh Heupel system? I think that they could fool you analytically because they are productive. And I'm just, in the way that we have, if I could just read through the list, you have DeCorian Moore, Andrew Marsh, Malachi Tony. I might switch Marsh and Tony. I don't care. Vernell Brown, agree with that. And then we have Roebuck. You have Roebuck at 5. Behind Roebuck, you have Dallas Wilson, Winston Watkins, Lotier Brooks. Particularly with Dallas Wilson and Lotier Brooks, it creates the impression on this list that you would trade Wilson or Brooks to acquire Roebuck, and that would be malpractice. That would be like going in to get your tonsils removed and coming out with your knee amputated, at least in my opinion. So I understand that he's had a productive freshman season, but this is a guy that's probably going to be an undrafted free agent. This is going to be a guy that's at best taken in the 5th or 6th round, whereas players that you have ranked below him do have the opportunity, do have the potential to be in round 1. Now, I know Wilson's been hurt. I know Brooks hasn't been as productive, but if somebody looked at that list and traded Wilson or Brooks for Roebuck, I think that they would be mad in 2 or 3 years. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, hopefully they're in the same tier, Roebuck and Wilson. I mean, I guess like you said, you're essentially saying that you could trade for either one, but like, at least in my experience, I'm never trading. Even if a guy's in the same tier, I'm never trading them 1 for 1. I'm at least getting something on top for it. So like, if I'm in the same tier, I'm saying, okay, well, I like these guys the same. So why would I send one? One of us is going to be wrong, right? One of us has to be wrong, essentially. So give me something on top if you really want Roebuck, or give me something on top if you really want Wilson. And obviously, if they're behind or anything like that. But I guess I just have to ask you. You'd mentioned his size and everything. He was a true freshman. Obviously, we can assume that he can get a little bit bigger over the course of a couple of years. So I'm assuming you're 100% out on Mekhi Lemon then at 5'11".
I don't have a problem with his size at all. I even named players who fit that profile. I have no issue with his size, a 5'11" wide receiver. But those types of wide receivers, when they're that size, they have certain skills if they are going to succeed at the next level. Mekhi Lemon is a great route runner. He is explosive, so it's like a difference. Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like a very physical player at the catch. I understand production, and my assumption. You can correct me when I'm wrong. Correct me when I'm saying something that's factually inaccurate. My assumption is that the list here is based off their production as freshman wide receivers, and not necessarily considering what skill sets they have to translate to the next level. And that is what I'm saying. That's where I said in communities you have polar opposites, and they believe that that's the only thing that you can consider. I'm saying that this list appears to me is it is considering productivity in and of itself, and not in anything to the exclusion of anything else. That's what it appears to me. That's the only reason why we'd have Roebuck, because of his productivity, ranked above Wilson and Brooks, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I said as much to several people who commented. Like, it is largely based, solely based, really, on productivity. And and with Roebuck, I've even said to these guys, like, I don't love Roebuck. He's not really efficient on a per route basis when you look at guys in this class that I do like an Andrew Marsh or Malachi Toney or DeCorian Moore. He's not meeting those thresholds that I like. But there's one of the case that comes to mind immediately is Mario Craver, who similarly productive last year, similarly wasn't very efficient on a per route basis. And then this year, he had a stellar one game, and then a few other really good games, and then a lot of disappearing acts. So I don't know how I feel about Mario Craver now, but he's a guy that I feel like proved me somewhat wrong, because I was like, maybe I'm not too excited about it. But at the same time, I was like, well, the process for me is ever changing, but still following the same guidelines. Maybe for true freshmen, we should be more worried about their route participation and how much production they are getting for their team. Like a yards per team pass attempt is a good metric that I use to go by, which of course Roebuck is hitting all those metrics right now, which is, and to your point about trading 1 for 1, I get where that sentiment comes from. I post these things as my ideas. I don't think if I had Roebuck, or if I was trying to acquire Roebuck with a Dallas Wilson or a Latier Brooks, I would obviously be looking to get more added on based on how the community values them. These are just more or less how I would view them. But if
And I mean, I also think that, there are like 8 content creators in the C2C and Devy space. And believe there are more and more people playing who aren't as in tune with players and values and et cetera. So they, there's somebody out there that might see a list and say, oh, Desmond Roebuck is here, as Dallas Wilson is here. I can go trade my buddy. I can go get Desmond Roebuck for Dallas Wilson and make that flip. And I just think in this instance, when we're talking about projection, could both Brooks and Wilson fall on their face? Absolutely. But there's nothing outside of his production that I think projects Roebuck to the next level. By the way, I didn't even know that the rest of the Campus Canton guys didn't. I haven't heard him. I've never heard him talk about a little bit, but I didn't know that everybody.
That was why I
else
was
out there
asking
too.
about priors, and I wasn't trying to put you in the same boat as them, but I have heard the Back to Devy guys mention his athleticism in the athleticism score, or whatever it is that CampusCanton.com does. And mentioning that he did not do very well in that athleticism score. I think we're already seeing that, like, at the very least, he's more athletic than we probably thought, just based on what he's done on the field and everything. He's definitely broken some big plays and done things like that. So I'm not, in that, like I said, I didn't want to put you in the same boat as them, but I have heard them mention, and that was why they liked the teammate more, because they said, oh, well, his athleticism, it probably comps better to the NFL and blah, 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 even though he's not doing it on the field. I mean, you got to do it on the field at some point. And if you have a rebuttal, go ahead. But I wanted to get Aaron's opinion on Roebuck here, because obviously I have my numbers and I have everything that I can look at, and I can sit here and tell you why I do think he will transition to the NFL. But I kind of want to hear it from a film guy who has a differing opinion, because Aaron's basically been, I feel like, as high, if maybe not even higher than I am on Roebuck. He's been right up there with me. And then also I need someone to tell me why we think Latier Brooks is going to be anything special beyond the fact that he's like super fast, because I've not seen it at all in college.
Sure, I'll go ahead. So I'm there with you on Lutzer Brooks. Kind of a projection. He's 5'9". We talked about size tonight with these wide receivers. That's a very narrow path for success for Lutzer Brooks. But I understand the landing spot, right? Playing in the SEC for Alabama, great coaching staff as far as like scheming up players, getting some production out of the wide receiver position and at the quarterback position for Alabama. We know that there'll be some production there. He's just got to be patient. That's Brooks. But going back to Roebuck, well, he is almost matching the production of a potential first-round pick and fourth-year senior in Denzel Boston. Now, I'm not saying he's going toe-to-toe, because he had a slower start, right? As a true freshman for any collegiate team, to get a sizable role within the first couple of weeks is difficult, and Roebuck, he had to earn it. But he was flashing right away. And the thing is, watching him, I've not been blown away like Felix presented some points about like how he's playing. It's not that I'm blown away by him. Like, I don't think he's a guy who's going to be running like a 4.2, but he is a very smooth player. And he is at least showing some nuance as a route runner where I don't think anybody's really been able to watch a comprehensive film breakdown of Roebuck to this point. I just don't know that there's a lot of folks out there who have truly done deep dives. Like, they've appreciated a couple of highlights maybe, or a little bit of the production he's doing, but I think he's one of those players where it's going to take time in the offseason for folks to take, especially film-based analysts, to take a little bit of a deeper dive. And I've watched enough to be very much intrigued when you combine the early production as a true freshman, when you combine some of the flashes that he has shown, I think there's intrigue there, and I just hesitate to project a lot with Brooks. But I will agree that I really do think at Florida, now there's a lot of issues going on at Florida, right? But Dallas Wilson, he shows that alpha trait. He shows a lot from both his high school profile, early season, spring practices, when he was on the field for Florida, and a struggling DJ Lagway. Dallas Wilson looked like a stud out there, and that's besides another talented player in Vernell Brown III. So, anyways, I guess I'm not trying to say that Roebuck should be ranked similarly, but I'm shedding some light on why I think he could be a very, very solid player. Is he going to be the highest upside player? That's a different conversation. But at this point, he has shown us a lot.
I like it. Love hearing the film analysis on him because obviously Debbie Beth loves Roebuck. I was gonna give my list real quick just because I didn't even really give any analysis on this. Like I said, I liked the list for the most part. I'm not really like out on any of these players for the most part, but I think I have it as Andrew Marsh in a tier by himself right now. I don't think I know everyone loves DeCorian Moore, and maybe you can say it's a Dante Moore problem more than a DeCorian Moore problem, but he's just not doing the same things that Andrew Marsh is doing. At least what Debbie Beth is looking at. So Andrew Marsh in a tier by himself. Then we have DeCorian Moore and Desmond Roebuck at 2 and 3 in their own tier. Malachi Tony is probably in the same tier, but he's kind of like a step below. Vernell Brown the third below that. Donovan Oligbode, is that right? Is behind him, and then I have Cortez Mills Jr. out of, I believe, Nebraska. Is that right? Yeah, Nebraska. I have that, Tanook Hines, and then Dallas Wilson. The Wilson one is kind of not fair because he got hurt, and obviously and he looked like he was going to do bigger and better things. But honestly, we can only do what we saw. We can project a little bit, so like I don't really mind Wilson being in the same tier as those other guys, but I would have to skip player after player after player to get to Latsier Brooks. I just don't see it. I mean, he has to be almost a completely different player in year 2 for me to say that he's anything beyond just a speed threat or a deep threat or anything like that can run past people. But that's not what we're looking for. At least that's not what I'm looking for when it comes to NFL futures and NFL purposes and everything. And that's not even taking into the size or anything. I don't look at size for wide receivers. I don't care if you're 5'9". I don't care if you're 6'5". It doesn't really matter. I just want to see, can you do it on the field? I'm the biggest Mario Craver fan in the world, and so you won't hear me talking about size for wide receivers. Just, can you do it or can you not do it? And I just have not seen enough out of Latsier Brooks. So I know it kind of fell off.
Can I just ask one player comparison, because Mills, like, what's the difference between Mills and Brooks as to why Mills would be ranked ahead of so far ahead of Brooks?
So when what you're looking at is what they've. I mean, and it's a small sample size with Mills, and so he's only run 64 routes this year compared to 169 for Brooks. So it could be a small sample trap. Honestly, it very well.
Or it's like a weighted average, it's whatever. I'm asking, is that it would be a weighted average as to what he's done with the opportunities provided?
Pretty much, and and unfortunately, with the smaller samples, especially for the wide receivers, it definitely could be a trap with Cortez Mills. This is not me trying to like put my stamp on the player or anything like that. That's definitely not what he's done on a per play basis is just showing up so much better than what Latsier Brooks has done on a per play basis. Brooks has a let's see, where are you at ADOT wise? Actually his ADOT's better than I thought. So like he's looking like that deep threat. I thought it was going to be more of like the short, shallow kind of like Makai Lemony kind of deal, but it's just not. I mean, the PPR points per touch are low, the yards per team pass attempt are obviously low, the market share, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I give freshmen such a big boost in Debbie Beth because I don't expect you to be a stud out of the gate or anything like that, and yet he's still really not. Like right now, Brooks is my 75th wide receiver overall in Debbie Beth. That's not.
Well, I understand about Brooks, but I'm just trying. I mean, Mills has 9 receptions for 147 yards. Brooks has 23 for 300 and some odd. So I'm like, if somebody's looking at raw statistics, what is it? What is it that makes Mills stand out that much more analytically than Brooks? But I'm assuming that it has to be like a weighted, almost graded on a curve.
Well, yeah, it's just more. It's more that he's just scoring more points per play. He's doing more things per play. Like I said, it could be a small sample trap, but like Mills is my wide receiver 49 overall. Brooks is my wide receiver 75 overall. They're not that far apart when all things considered or anything like that. So like this is not me putting my stamp on Mills. I feel a lot better about the guys ahead of him: Donovan Olakbude, Vernell Brown, Malachi Tony, Roebuck, Decory Moore. We actually have pretty good samples from all those guys. 173 routes, 230, 318, 297, so on and so forth. So I feel pretty confident about I like those guys. You start getting below that, and I'll basically take just about anybody at that point and say they could be something. They could be something.
I currently have, I think, over 100 wide receivers ranked on the site at Campus Decaden for Devy rankings, and I am a little bit more hesitant to want to move down guys who haven't done much yet. So the Lotzer Brooks of the world. You'll also see pretty high in my rank still Quincy Porter at Ohio State. All it's going to take is for him to get an opportunity end of the season. Now, they will be in competitive games rest of season, most likely, right? There's probably not that garbage time potential where all the starters sit in some meaningless bowl game. But you could see Quincy Porter get on the field there. He had a good opportunity last week. Unfortunately, he was banged up.
He did.
Yes. That would have been his breakout opportunity. So maybe we don't really see it this season, but a guy who's impressing early, I just don't give up on those guys unless they're a complete zero. I think there's still a few opportunities left for him to get on the field this year. So I still have him pretty highly ranked at Ohio State. But yeah, a lot of these guys, when I don't see anything, I move them down. Like Elijah Thomas, Oklahoma wide receiver. I know there was a lot of hope for him, but a mega producer at a low level of competition in high school, Elijah Thomas was promising. He showed up on campus. He made some impressive plays, but that's obviously not consistent enough, or whatever the case is, to earn a big role so far at Oklahoma. But the season's not done, so we'll see what those guys are going to do. I've moved them down some, but I don't like to nuke those guys or move Cortez Mills of the world up excessively when it's just such a small sample. But once it starts getting a bigger sample, yes, we have to take note of these guys. Winston Watkins Jr., Donovan Olakbude, some of the other guys we talked about.
I've never seen a player get more hype coming into a season and then do absolutely nothing. And it's not like Oklahoma's wide receiver core is fine, but if Elijah Thomas was getting that much hype coming into the season, which he was, they were putting all these videos on Twitter and YouTube, and to do absolutely nothing, I'm just like, I don't get that one.
I feel like we have a lot of that this year. It's not just Thomas. Thomas is definitely one of them. You got the wide receiver from Texas. You have two LSU guys that have basically fallen flat on their face, done absolutely nothing. If you're a subscriber of the year 1-0 theory, you're going to be hating a lot of these guys, unfortunately. And I think I mentioned Tanook Hines. I know that Andy has him here at 10 on his list. If it wasn't for this last game, would we even be talking about Tanook Hines? So, Aaron was saying, there's still a couple games left, and obviously, anything can and will happen. Could Quincy Porter go out and put up a big game or two, and then all of a sudden we go, oh, Quincy Porter, we got to move him up. So, the season's not over. There's still a lot of things that can and will happen. Like I said, Tanook Hines had 6 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown in this past week. Before that, 1 reception for 5, 1 reception for 10. He had a couple decent games, but nothing like that. So I don't even know if we'd be even talking about him if it wasn't for that kind of stuff. But I think we can all pretty much agree. It seems like Aaron didn't really give his list or anything, but it seems like he would probably agree with the top 3. I know he's never been as high on Vernell Brown, so I don't know if he would be okay with him being up there at 4 or 5 or whatever. Obviously, Roebuck, I know you're the biggest Dallas Wilson fan, but do you have a substantially different list beyond that?
No, I have it, Decory Moore, Malachi Tony, though I do have legitimate concerns about him as a is a big-time wide receiver. I think he can be a very capable slot guy. Just what is that package ultimately as a wide receiver? Can he develop into a KC Concepcion? Like, that is the path, in my opinion, for Malachi Tony. It's like the first year, low ADOT, touches, out of the backfield, screen passes, whatever the case is, but then needs to develop that intermediate to deep game. I think he has the talent for it. Like, what we're seeing out of Malachi Tony is what we always had hoped for with guys like, what's his name, Zachariah Branch, and players in that type of ilk. So I still have him at Malachi Tony at 2. Andrew Marsh now moving up to 3. Vernell Brown 4. Dallas Wilson right behind him 5, and then Quincy Porter 6. Desmond Roebuck 7. Oleg Bode 8. Winston Watkins 9. Lotzer Brooks at 10. So, and not far behind them, there's a bunch of talented guys that I think could get an opportunity at some point. Kalik Lockett, Texas wide receiver. Talon Taylor, Georgia. We got Tino Kynes, and then Julian Cooper at SMU has actually done some things this year. He's been colder of late. So those are just some guys that come in really close to the top 10 as well.
I like Taylor too, but he's out for the rest of the year. He had like a shoulder injury. But he's a player that I liked coming into the season. And had he missed a touch. He dropped a touchdown early in the season. He would have broke year 1-0, and I don't think. But he's out for the rest of the year.
I will never fall for a Georgia wide receiver ever again. I'm just not doing it. I'm 100% out. I was so in on Taylor. There's been so many wide receivers that I've gotten excited about, and the second they go to Georgia, they just get completely lost in the mix, and they don't know how to use these guys. So I want nothing to do with them anymore. But I think that was a great talk about the 2028 class, and I mean, obviously we have a lot of time for them to move up, move down, all that kind of stuff. I think we kind of proved that there's definitely a top 3-ish. And then obviously there's some we need to get some clarity on some of these guys from there. But it'll be interesting to see what Roebuck can do moving forward, because like Aaron was saying, Denzel Boston missed this week, and Roebuck went out and did essentially what Denzel Boston does on any given week while he was gone, but as a true freshman and not as a senior. And so we can say whatever we want, but I mean, if he can grow from there, I would expect that we will see big things in his sophomore and junior seasons and all that kind of stuff. But unless there's any retorts, rebuttals, or anything else, are we ready to dive into some Cornerstone rankings?
Let's do it.
I'm getting a bunch of nods and a let's do it. So let's dive into Devy. Alrighty, and so for Cornerstone rankings, if you guys have never heard of them, don't know what we're talking about, essentially we're trying to mix in the players from Devy. We're getting closer to that rookie season where we have to draft these players, mix them into our teams, and figure out where we rank these guys with the Dynasty players that are already there. And it's always a fun exercise when we go through it and we say, would we trade this player for this player that's in the NFL already? Or, would we at the very least consider them valued similarly, like that kind of thing? So I think it helps the audience. It helps us even sometimes just talking through and saying, hey, I didn't realize I was going to be this high on this guy, but yeah, I'm willing to trade X player for him, or something like that. So why don't we dive into it? I know Andy said he had a few for us, Aaron had a few for us, and obviously we can hopefully get 1 or 2 opinions from Felix as well. Felix, how are you doing? You doing okay?
I'm muted. I'm holding up. I'm nervous. I've never been on a podcast before, so just trying to do my best.
Well, at the very least, it's been quite some time, so we're glad to have you back. Shake off the dust off that mic. We couldn't hear you at first because there was so much dust on it, but now we can. Andy, who are we starting off with here, buddy?
All right. Okay. So I've got 3 of them, but they're all pretty good players. I didn't want to go too far down the Devy rabbit hole, but this first one, my NFL player is going to be Ashton Genty, who, I don't know how people are feeling about him right now. He certainly had some good weeks, had some down weeks. but in that
Andy
same
just
level,
Andy just wanted to victory lap his Trevion Henderson over Ashton Genty. That's
I
all
can't
this
yet.
is.
I'm not ready to do it yet because it hasn't happened yet. But I'm giving it time. But so I've got Ashton Genty, and obviously, I'm going to throw Jeremiah Love in there from the 2026 class, and then from the Devy returning prospects, we're going to go with Ahmad Hardy. So keep trade cut or 1, 2, 3. And I always like to caveat this, like in a Devy league, you should never trade like an Ashton Genty, an established guy who's scoring you points on your fantasy team right now, for an Ahmad Hardy straight up. But you can value them similarly, but you should still try and get something back on the NFL side to replace those points that you might be losing. But those are the 3 players.
So it was Hardy,
Love.
Genty, and Love.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I for whatever reason I did not hear the Love part, and I thought it was just Hardy versus Genty, and I was like, man, this is like the easiest one I've ever heard of. I'm not even the biggest Genty fan, but like, give me Genty all day. He's already in the NFL. Obviously, he did a lot in college, and we were, even though we might not have been the highest on him, we weren't in love with him being the 101 and rookie dress and all that stuff. We still like the player quite a bit. This has never been hatred for Ashton Genty, but if you're also throwing Jeremiah Love in there, I almost want to just re-roll and just say, hey, like the Raiders are in just such disarray. Can we say that things are going to get better anytime soon? I don't know. At least there's the hope that Jeremiah Love could land in a really good spot, and then we're sitting there going, well, they're not that dissimilar as prospects, as players, or anything like that. Ashton Genty and Jeremiah Love. If anything, we might even have a little bit bigger of a big play rate, a big time run rate kind of thing with Love than we even see with Genty. Genty was definitely more of like the all around 3 down back, receiver profile, like that kind of thing. But it's not that Love doesn't have any of those as well. So I think I'm re-rolling with Jeremiah Love. That being said, when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, I'm still trying to get something small on top. Give me a third on top. Give me something, because I just don't like when we're talking about like similarly ranked players. I don't love just trading them straight up, because there's always that chance that you lose. And at least if I get a third, maybe I can go get an Oronde Gadsden or somebody later on, and then even if I lose the trade, I go, okay, but I made up for it with that one.
Pains me to agree, but no, I'm just kidding, John. I like your mindset there. Love, Genty, then Hardy. Nothing against Hardy. Actually, I will go on a small rant, because I was told to start Hardy by so many CFF experts out there this weekend. And you know what? Hardy, he doesn't even have a lock on that backfield. Like, he shares time within the backfield. He's not even a 2-minute back. He doesn't even have the passing downs. And against a tough Oklahoma defense, I was like, what is the upside for this Missouri offense? They don't have a proven quarterback. All right, maybe I shouldn't go down this tangent. But at the end of the day, roll Hardy out there. I survived into the championship in the Devy U League with John and Andy, but I was very sad just watching Hardy get crushed all day long. He is not the caliber type of player that Jeremiah Love, Ashton Genty are or were. So yes, Jeremiah Love, Ashton Genty, and then cutting Ahmad Hardy.
I hate to listen to this. You can cut this and use it. I agree with John here, because I'm going to re-roll with Jeremiah. I'm going to re-roll with Jeremiah Love. I expect him to go in the top 10 in the NFL draft, and he might even have a better landing spot than Ashton Genty's. Genty's value is probably plateaued. I mean, I don't know. He was the number 4 overall pick. I don't know that unless he has a Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs type season. I don't know that his value is going to go up necessarily from here. So I would probably, again, re-roll on Love, trade Genty, and then Hardy is an easy. By the way, I love Ahmad Hardy's story. Obviously, transfer from ULM to Missouri. I did not have expectations for him to succeed the way he did, but at the same time, to the extent he makes it to the NFL, I think he's not going to be long for there, because he's a player who takes a lot of contact. He reminds me. To be honest, he reminds me a little bit of Cam Scatabo, a similar style player, and we've seen Cam Scatabo is out for the season. So, and Hardy might be a little bit smaller, just as physical, but a little bit smaller. So, I agree with Andy and Aaron, or excuse me, John and Aaron on this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a clean sweep then, because that's how I would have it as well. And I was in the same boat as you, Felix, with Hardy. Like, love great story, but I did not think he was going to have the season that he's having right now. So he proved me wrong in that sense, but not to the extent that I would, trade him for, a guy who is projected to be a top 3 pick in dynasty drafts this year, or a guy like Ashton Genty who, generational statistics anyway. I don't know if he's quite going to be what we wanted him to be as an NFL running back, but like John was saying, it might be just due to the team that he's on. So I think I'm with all of you guys here. Re-roll with Love. Hope you get a better situation, better upside, and then keep Hardy down there at the bottom. Which isn't to say anything bad about Hardy. It's just I'd rather have Genty at this point in time.
I mean, just the fact that we're even talking about Hardy in the mix with those guys at least shows what he's done this year. And that I think, we all had question marks about Hardy going into the season, especially. But even when he first started doing it, Aaron was definitely a little slower coming around. Like, he wasn't 100% sure if it was going to happen or not, or if he was just going to completely fall off once they hit like the SEC schedule and everything. And I can say we're beyond that point at this point. So even though we're all cutting him, we're all in agreement here. Just him being up there just shows like what he's done, and I'm still excited about the player for sure. He's just not in that same tier as Love and Genty as far as I'm concerned. Aaron, do you have another running back for us, or do you have a different position?
Let's go a different position here, and I need Felix's opinion on this. Felix has to go first on this because I need some Kenyon Sadiq insight by somebody who appreciates his talent. Hopefully, maybe Felix is not a big Sadiq guy, but my co-hosts here are just not cutting it as far as the hype goes for Kenyon Sadiq. So, Kenyon Sadiq, Colston Loveland.
Before we get into to the players, what's the rebuttal against Sadiq?
It's just production. It's just production. He has. I mean, he just hasn't done much. Like people are pushing him up as the tight end one by far. Like he has to be a first round pick. He has to be this. He has to be that. And I mean, what is he at? 400 receiving yards on the year. People are like freaking out over his performance in this past game. Don't get me wrong, like I see the plays, like you could definitely see the guy's rocked up. Like he looks like a player that you want to say, like, oh my god, that guy could be a stud in the NFL. I get it, but I honestly think those guns that he's holding, are just are like swaying people's minds because 7 receptions for 72 yards is not that exciting. Yes, he added 2 touchdowns along with that, but this is not some like stud that we're like I have to have this player on my team. That being said, I don't hate the player or anything like that. I just don't really understand beyond people holding on to priors. I don't really understand why we're just sitting here going like this guy has to be the tight end one in this class and he has to do this, he has to do that. It just doesn't hit me right.
You see what I'm having to deal with here, Felix. How about Kenyon Sadiq, Colston Loveland, or Harold Fannin Jr.? So we're looking at a couple of guys who are rookies in the NFL in Loveland and Fannin, who are doing some interesting things so far, right? Versus Kenyon Sadiq, who, as John said, and most people are saying, he is this consensus tight end one at this point in the pre-draft process.
I didn't want to double check. So what are Kenyon Sadiq's stats on the year? I just want to double check something since we're talking about production here. All right, so it's not exactly right, but so his senior year, George Kittle had like 319 yards receiving. He had less than 750 yards receiving total during his entire time at Iowa. At the tight end position, I think the thing that I'm most concerned about is not only athleticism, but do you profile as a wide receiver, or excuse me, as a guy that they're going to use in a move like an H-back type, or they're going to line you up in the slot, maybe line you up at X like Brock Bowers or what's my man's name in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts, like that type. I know Kyle Pitts hasn't turned out, but still he has the skill set to line up there. I think Kenyon Sadiq, I mean, he's like Kenyon Sadiq is fine. I do think he's the tight end one in this class. I love Justin Jolie. I've been a big Justin Jolie fan for a very long time. I'm a fan of his, and I can tell the NFL draft that community doesn't watch college football because nobody's watching NC State to see who this good player is, but they should because Justin Jolie's a great player. I think this one is relatively easy because the one that I'm keeping is Colston Loveland. We talk about a guy who Colston Loveland is a former wide receiver. He is a former wide receiver and then converted to tight end his sophomore year through his freshman year there at Michigan. And, I've just always been a big Colston Loveland. I advocated for, he was a free agent in the player pool his sophomore year, and I advocated for people picking him up. So I guess that means I'm going to trade Sadiq because his value, I mean, you could probably get, just think about what you could get for Kenyon Sadiq as far as value goes if you're in a NFL dynasty thing, because he's probably going to be in rookie drafts the top 10-ish pick, probably something like that. So you can get a lot for him, and his athleticism and the way he tests at the combine is going to make him really intriguing. Which means that Fannin is the odd man out here, which is easy. Who is the Browns quarterback going to be? I mean, it's nothing against Fannin himself. I mean, he probably won a lot of people C2C leagues on the college side last year, but he's the one I'm cutting here.
Yeah, this might surprise Aaron. Sorry, John, but
no, you're good.
I kind of like Kenyon Sadiq now. It's been a good last 4 weeks for him. There was one dud in there where he had a catch for 6 yards, but 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, 96 yards and a touchdown, then last week 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's over 2 yards per route run on the season, which almost never happens for tight ends. Usually you get like 3-4 out of the Power 4 conferences in a season that do that well. Colston Loveland is a guy that consistently did it. And then Harold Fannin is interesting. Obviously, he's a little bit undersized coming into the league, but then had flashed early for Cleveland. But yeah, Kenyon Sadiq for me is now my tight end one. It used to be Eli Stowers, who is more of that H-back type player, whereas Kenyon Sadiq is probably more of a traditional tight end in the Kittle Gronkowski sense. But not to compare the players or anything, but that would be more his style. I think I would probably, it'd be close with Colston Loveland, honestly. I view them similarly, but I think I would take Colston Loveland overall and keep him first, just because I love the Ben Johnson system. He's already shown that he, can utilize and have a fantasy relevant tight end with Sam Laporta when he was in Detroit. Whatever he's doing is working there because they're in first place in the NFC North. They just keep winning games for some reason, even though the Bears still suck. So I'm going to keep Loveland, but I will, I guess, the next thing is trade Sadiq, but I like him. I think Sadiq is moving up quickly. And then, yeah, Harold Fannin, Cleveland, and Njoku's still on that team, but it seems like he never plays. And then, like Felix was saying, you just don't even know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Who's even going to be coaching the team next year? A lot of question marks. So let me lock in the value with Sadiq over Fannin at this point.
Yeah, but can I just say something about Sadiq? Very easily should have been drafted in the first round of supplemental drafts this year. Like that was like he's going too high. I mean, the dude, pretty much the entire C2C community. By the way, C2C community, the most dialed in out of anybody in college. Like people who talk about the sport, people who play C2C are really dialed in. But absolutely should have been going in the top 7, given what we expected from him athletically and to be a focal point. And by the way, we had the spring game. The spring game, he was Dante Moore's number 1 target, getting the ball downfield. I mean, should have been a player taken in the first round of supplemental drafts above some of these freshmen.
So I think Kenyon Sadiq is Harold Fannin Jr. honestly, and I think they're essentially the same player. Like they have similar A dots, they have similar yards per not yards per game. Obviously, Fannin was doing it at a lower level, so he was able to do more. But if you're looking at what they were doing on like a per play basis and things like that, they're so similar. Obviously, we don't love the landing spot for Fannin there in Cleveland. But if they were ever to get, I would assume that David Njoku's probably gone after this year, and then it's just going to be the Fannin show. I don't know that Fannin and Sadiq are going to have all that dissimilar careers, going forward or moving forward. You can say that Sadiq is going to be a first round pick in the NFL draft, and he's hopefully he goes to a good spot or anything. But if we're comparing to Colston Loveland, there's no comparison to me whatsoever. Colston Loveland is an absolute stud of a tight end in just a crappy situation in Chicago with so many mouths to feed and a crappy quarterback. So, I mean, if we can get Colston Loveland a better quarterback, or if maybe there's less mouths to feed in the near future, I think Loveland's going to have a better career than both of those players, Sadiq and Fannin. So basically, I'm keeping Loveland. I'm trading Sadiq, like Felix said. I mean, you can get so much for him right now. Holy crap. And then I guess I'm cutting Fannin, even though I like the player. And I'll tell you what, of all the things that I brag about Beth and Devy Beth and all that kind of stuff, for whatever reason, Beth does a really good job with tight ends. And it's because of their production. You have the random George Kittle that hits, and people go back to that, just like they go back to Josh Allen for QBs, and they go, but Josh Allen. They go, oh, but George Kittle. But for the most part, there's a reason why I have 40% Oronde Gadsden. There's a reason why I have even a decent amount of Harold Fannin and players like that. And so much Tucker Kraft, even though he was drafted behind Luke Musgrave. And it's because of what they did and what they did production-wise in college, not because they looked good in a uniform. So we got to pump the brakes on Kenyon Sadiq just a little bit.
Since we're talking about tight ends, and I don't get to talk on podcasts anymore, there's one player that I do want to throw out here because he's not going to have a lot of production, but he was here in Louisville last year. Jamari Johnson, who's now Kenyon Sadiq's backup, he's like 6'5", 260. Is probably just as athletic as those. I'm like, he should have been the focal point of their passing game last year, Louisville's passing game last year. But anyway, he's since transferred, and he's a player that is probably 0% rostered. And I kind of think you should take him in the 5th round next year in supplemental draft. So, for anybody, I won't get another chance to make that recommendation. But
Felix, did you say that you were a fan of Justin Jolie, or were you talking crap?
Yes. Since he was in UConn and playing in, I forgot that offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator at NC State was the same offensive coordinator for Oronde Gadsden, and you saw that, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's a Hispanic guy. But he had a similar skill set to Oronde Gadsden when he was transferring from UConn to NC State. So Jolie, his first year at NC State, I was a big fan of him and hyped him up a bunch last year.
The reason why I asked is just because Jolie has been and still is Debbie Beth's tight end 1 in the class. And it just has not changed.
And you know what? I can't even add 2 and 2 together. And look, see, film and analytics. So,
hey man, that's when
Robert Anai, that's his name, Robert Anai. Robert Anai was the offensive coordinator for both of those guys.
That's when it works. That's why we have Aaron on the pod, because when we mesh that film and analytics, we know. Because me and Andy are just sitting there with our glasses. I need to put my glasses on, and nerding out. And then we bring Aaron in, and he's touched grass before, and it's nice when it all meshes together, and you get Justin Jolie. That's my tight end 1. Get Kenyon Sadiq out of here. We gotta.
Yeah, Robert and I was also the offensive coordinator there's a big athletic tight end who's been injured all the time for the Colts. I forgot what his name is. Came from Virginia. So basically, anywhere Robert and I has been, he's turned that tight end position. They don't even call it tight end. They call it like Joker or something like that.
Yeah, Joker.
He's turned it into a very productive player. But Justin Jolie was, even before Anai, he was great after the catch. Very sticky hand. Another former wide receiver, Justin Jolie. So.
I like it. Felix, you said you had one for us, or I guess Aaron had something to add here.
No, not necessarily. I like how you guys broke it down. Loveland, and then kind of some debate between Sadiq and Fannin, and I think I side on the Sadiq end, but I understand the similarities there in some ways. I think Sadiq's a little bit more willing as a blocker, potentially a little higher upside at the NFL level than Fannin. But no, I want to hear what else we got here for a couple of players.
All right, I got two. Keep, trade, cut, and I crossed out some names to make this a little bit harder. Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Underwood, Bryce Young. Two Bryces and a Trevor.
That is a tough one. Okay. I mean, obviously, Trevor Lawrence is just becoming like a pariah at this point. It's become bad. Obviously, Bryce Young was already there, but then has kind of come back to, relevance and everything. And then you have Bryce Underwood, who is not great, but not terrible either. It's so tough with these freshman QBs, man. Like Bryce Underwood's numbers are just so poor. But then Debbie Beth has him goes, "Hey, chill. You got to chill because he's a freshman. Like he can get so much better from here." But his numbers are just so bad. Honestly, I think I'm going. This is crazy. I think I'm going Bryce Young, Bryce Underwood, Trevor Lawrence. And honestly, I'm keeping Bryce Young. I'm trading Bryce Underwood because I don't think the hype's going to stick around. And then I'm cutting Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, I've never been the guy that's been like, "Oh, Trevor Lawrence is terrible" or whatever. But honestly, I think it's a Shane Waldron issue at OC more than anything. He's been terrible wherever he's gone, and yet he keeps getting jobs. I'm assuming he's going to be gone by the end of the year. I don't know how he still has a job, but somehow, some way he does. I'm hoping things will get better, but we've been saying that for 7 years now or whatever it is for Trevor Lawrence. I'm too far gone. At least with Bryce, we know he has a true stud, and Bryce Young, that is, we have a true stud in Tet McMillan that's only going to get better. They can grow together. Hopefully they can grow as a team and get better offensive linemen and whatever else they need. They've been focusing on drafting receivers the past few years in the first round. Maybe they would go get an offensive lineman, get Bryce Young some more time and things like that. So I don't really love any of these players, but if I'm going with those three, give me Bryce Young as my keep.
Yeah. When you said all those, I was like, geez, can I cut all of them? But obviously, you don't want to give up on Bryce Underwood that early. He obviously, number one overall recruit. Plays for Michigan, which has never been a good thing for quarterbacks. I know, John was saying earlier that J.J. McCarthy is like the buy of all of Dynasty, but after last week, I'm not sure if he feels that way anymore.
Still
but
right there, man. He just keeps getting cheaper.
Yeah, he does. I mean,
I don't understand how these analytics work because J.J. McCarthy was not good in college, so I don't understand how we could recommend buying him now. I don't understand that. It's not making sense to me.
And just to be clear, the funny thing is, I'm sitting here talking about how bad Bryce Underwood is, but because of the fact that he's a freshman and what he's done and everything, he's my QB6 overall in Debbie Beth right now. So it's like, I mean, I think that's more to like how poor the QB landscape is right now. It's just so bad for like actual NFL QBs. Now, you want to talk about CFF or whatever, that's a completely different story. But for actual QBs, I think can make it to the NFL and do their thing. Yeah, he's my QB6 right now. But man, if he doesn't take a big step forward in year two, I would imagine that he's going to fall pretty far.
It's a conversation for another day, but I think that there's a talent drought actually at all the positions other than tight end. I think that there's a lack of elite NFL talent at the skill positions right now.
It's weird. It's really weird. I mean, obviously the wide receivers for 27, and even we just talked about 28. Wide receivers are not bad, but for whatever reason, it just seems like we cannot find stud running backs right now. That's a little scary, especially. I don't know if it's just because we just drafted so many to the NFL this past year. Maybe it just feels that way because of that, but it's just a really weird time. But Aaron, I don't think you gave us your list there.
Well, let me drop mine real quick because I was going to keep Bryce Young, just
Oh, I'm
because the
sorry.
arrow's pointing up and they are winning games. And what he threw for like 450 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. So the the tools are there. I know sometimes the team is winning despite him, but with winning comes more confidence.
Just so you know,
Iron
they're currently
sharpens iron.
losing 17-3 as we're speaking,
Oh, are they? I
and
haven't been.
Bryce Young has seven attempts. Or I'm sorry, 7 completions on 12 attempts for 40 yards and 1 pick. So I already picked Bryce as my guy, but
Yeah, no,
it's not a great look after that.
no,
game
this
that
was
he just
recorded
had.
before the game, so we didn't have that information. But no, I'd keep Bryce. I think the arrow's pointing up for him. I think Trevor Lawrence is, kind of dead in the water. 11 picks this season. I know that he's had some injuries to his receiving core, and there's been some issues there, but I just can't see Jacksonville, re-signing him after this contract is up. So I think, his best bet is to have like a journeyman-like career, which could work out for him. We're seeing it work out with some of the other guys, but that's a dice roll that I'm not willing to take. So I'd probably put Bryce Underwood above him right now. I can forgive some of the interceptions and stuff for just him being a freshman, and hope that he can clean up the accuracy and stuff as he moves forward there at Michigan.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here is just, the optimism for Bryce Young. I understand it. Like, I liked him coming out as well. But his first 3 years in the NFL, he has just not been that productive especially as a fantasy asset, right? We were talking about a fantasy conversation, not who you might build your team around in real life. Like, I understand that Trevor Lawrence, he has been pretty average his 5 years in the league. But from a fantasy standpoint, he's been way better than Bryce Young this season. I mean, what are Bryce Young's last 3 games? I'd have to go back to it. It's like 1 point, 3 points, 9 points. He had the one big game, but that's just not enough at this point. He's struggling again tonight, apparently. And he's undersized. He's not like this Konami code. He's not Kyler Murray out there as far as a rusher. And we're seeing some issues from a shorter quarterback in Kyler Murray elsewhere. I just think there's some barriers for Bryce Young to ultimately maybe stick long term as well. You said that there's some uncertainty with Trevor Lawrence. Absolutely, right? He has not performed. And we can still always say, oh, well, he's so young. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he's still 26. I'll go back to that point, I guess. But again, has not been great in his career. But guess what? He has a 209. Well, it depends what scoring format you're using. But he's been a top 10 quarterback and a top 15 quarterback at least 3 different years in his career. So he's been a solid enough player. Now, we got to go to the college side because that's what we love to talk about here on this podcast. And Bryce Underwood, he has a ton of potential. I know he has not been perfect as a freshman. It's a lot of projection. And we get this wrong all the time, right? We think these guys are going to take a step forward, and they fall flat on their face. They don't take that next step. DJ Lagway, Uiagalelei, Nico this last year at Tennessee. Like, you just go down the list.
Jackson Arnold, Malachi Nelson. I mean, there's Arch Manning. There's a ton of them who just don't take that step.
Exactly. So it's hard to really project him. Like, he's that boomer bust piece. But I'm willing to take that over Bryce Young at this point. Trevor Lawrence, I still think that there's some safety there in him retaining some sort of a job at the NFL level for a few more years, and he's put out some pretty good fantasy production in the past, so I'll probably go with Lawrence. It just feels gross, though. I think you picked a nice array of guys here that maybe none of them feel super confident right at this time, and that's what makes this conversation pretty lively and interesting. So I'll go with the Trevor Lawrence, then Bryce Underwood at Michigan, then Bryce Young. But, I'm not saying I love any of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good one. I did not think I was going to be going with Bryce Young there, but I did. I just think there's more there's more of like the ability to fix the team around Bryce Young. I don't necessarily think that Young is the issue, but there's definitely all those concerns that you spoke about. So all those things are there. Andy, you said you had a few for us. So what's your next one you got for us?
Yeah, we can rattle off another one real quick. This one might be fun though. Another top tier guy from this class, Jordan Tyson, and then we're going to be matching him up with Drake London, and then we're also going to throw in Jeremiah Smith into the mix. So maybe Drake London obviously isn't the best wide receiver in the NFL, but he's up there. So how much are you willing to move off of to get potentially the 101 this year, or definitely the 101 next year?
I'll go first because this is just cut and dry. I think it's pretty simple for me. Jeremiah Smith, go with the best wide receiver in college football. Guy who just projects extremely well, super young, right? Then Drake London. I really do still think that Drake London has many years of pretty high-end production at the NFL level. And this is not even a slight against Jordan Tyson. It's just you brought some other strong names to the table here, Andy. So Jordan Tyson will be third, despite him being a pretty safe wide receiver prospect in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily disagree with everything you said, but my Jordan Tyson love is going to bump him ahead of Drake London, and it's because Jeremiah Smith is at one. I mean, the dude's just in a different tier. I mean, like, he always has been. The only thing we can say at this point is injury, and obviously no one's wishing that upon him or expecting that. Jordan Tyson's already had injuries. He's had multiple injuries, so like that part is a little scary. But man, what he does on the field is just different. I love Drake London, the player, but he has a Michael Penix problem, and unfortunately, that problem's not going anywhere because the Falcons traded away their first for what, the next 2 years. Is that right? Like they can't. They can't fix this problem. It's not going to happen. And so, unfortunately, you're going to be dealing with Michael Penix Jr. throwing him the ball. And, Drake London can show up and he can have big games, but it's definitely not consistent. It's just because of bad QB play from Michael Penix Jr. there. And then, obviously, we don't know where Tyson's going to go, but man, the dude is just a stud. Unbelievable, explosive playmaker. And yeah, I think that Atlanta is going to lock down Drake London. Aaron said free agency exists and everything. They could bring someone in. There's so few QBs that can be difference makers. And even like your Joe Flacco's and your Jameses and stuff, like they're going to be out of the league before you know it. And we're not even going to have those guys anymore. And unfortunately, like Felix was saying, like there's so few, we're not bringing in the same level of competition that we're leaving. We're not bringing in the same level of competitors that we're losing in the NFL on a weekly or yearly basis.
But
So,
Atlanta could be one of those destinations where you get a Brock Purdy type, and that's a player that you should pay attention to in dynasty rookie drafts, like Carson Beck. Who's the quarterback at Iowa? I'm talking about guys who could go in day 2 or day 3. Rocco Beck, Carson Beck. I don't know why they're both Becks, but Garrett Nussmeier, like somebody who would land there.
Better.
What?
We want him to be better than Michael Penix.
Well, I'm just saying, like as far as landing spots go, it could be you get the Russell Wilson type, the Brock Purdy type, who unseats Michael Penix there, but they're taking on day 2 or day 3.
Yeah, that's definitely possible, and I mean we could see that happen. I don't want to bank on that, and so that's why I'm putting London at 3, Tyson at 2, and it's just the unknown. Obviously, it could not work out. He could end up at the Raiders or something like that. I mean, we have no idea. Like it could be bad, and then maybe I'd change my mind. But I also believe that he is a more like Jordan Tyson. Andy likes to comp anyone to Malik Neighbors, but like Jordan Tyson's a lot closer to Malik Neighbors than a Drake London is. Like that explosive playmaker that can do it even on a bad offense. I'm still so sad that we lost Neighbors this year. Like what him and Jackson Dart could have done. I can see that with a lot of other QBs and a lot of other offenses with Tyson. So I got Jeremiah Smith at my. Well, I guess if I'm just doing 1, 2, 3, it's Jeremiah Smith, Jordan Tyson, and Drake London. But if I'm doing keep trade cut, then I'm doing I'm keeping Jordan Tyson. I'm trading Jeremiah Smith, and just because of the value that you can get for him, because you could probably get unbelievable return for Jeremiah Smith right now, and then I'm cutting Drake London if we're doing it that way.
I'm gonna cut Jordan Tyson. I'm gonna keep Jeremiah Smith, and I didn't realize Drake London was having as productive an NFL career as he is. But I would trade Drake London.
Yeah, I'm with Aaron and Felix here. That order. No disrespect to Jordan Tyson, obviously, but
Right.
you know, I think I don't want to say Drake London's QB proof, but like they're saying, if Michael Penix is truly terrible, they'll get somebody in there who can get him the ball. It might be one of these free agents we've talked about. It could be Trevor Lawrence or Bryce Young. You never know what's going to happen in 2 years. So we'll see what happens. We've seen all these guys from years ago resurrecting their careers with new teams. So that's not out of the realm of possibility either.
All right, Aaron, you said you had a couple for us as well. Felix said he had a couple for us. We're already over the hour mark, but we knew it was going to go long. There's 4 of us. We did the whole discussion earlier. So let's just go long. Aaron, what do you have for us? Another keep trade cut here.
Okay. I'm going to go with a couple of fun players in the college landscape. Actually, let's go to Felix first. One of these guys already got talked about, and if Felix has another one, otherwise, can spread the love to anyone here. One of these guys was already talked about. Sorry.
So I have another keep trade cut, including an NFL player, but I also have 3 players that I just want to hear you all talk about. They're college players. So which one of these, and none of them are players that have we brought up today. So which one should I bring to the floor? I listen to podcasts all the time, obviously, because I reach out to all of you when I do, with being angry at ridiculous takes. But yeah, I'm almost like, I just want to hear you guys talk about certain players and see what your opinions are on these players. So let me do that one, okay? These are all college players. Sorry, I know we're doing Cornerstone rankings, but no, I'm gonna save that one. I'm sorry, because I are nerdy. It's too easy. Let's do this one. All right, Chris Bell, Jameson Williams, Ryan Williams.
Ryan Williams. I still believe in the talent. I think he's a stud there. You said Chris Bell and Jameson. At this point, still give me Jameson. I think that boom bust potential is, I don't know. I still believe that there's a little bit more there. That's kind of what you're hoping for out of Chris Bell, to be honest. At least in my opinion, is that he's kind of I'm not saying that they're the same style, right? But they are very speedy players, and I don't think that Chris Bell is suddenly going to become some sort of unstoppable alpha at the NFL level. I think he could easily be a number 2 in the offense, which is what I see Jameson Williams as, and he's going to be kind of valuable with Sam Laporta out rest of season as well in that receiving game for the Lions. So I am taking Ryan Williams at Alabama. Then I'm going to go Jameson Williams. And then last one, Chris Bell, Louisville, wide receiver.
Yeah, I got Ryan Williams keeping. I think he's the best wide receiver on this list. I'm actually going to trade Chris Bell. And it's because, I don't know what's going on with Jameson Williams. Whoever's calling the plays, whether it's Dan Campbell or Morton, they don't know. They haven't figured out how to use him the way that Ben Johnson was using him last year. It's worked a couple games, but then you'll have, he's had 2 games where he didn't have a catch. 1 game where he only had 1 catch for 9 yards. So it's really like boom bust. And in this scenario trade, Chris Bell is being valued, I would say, as like a late first, early second at this point in time, which I think is more than what you could get for Jameson Williams.
Okay.
And close, very close.
No, you're probably right, but that means Chris Bell is being overrated then.
Oh, I'm with you 100% that he's overrated. I said that he's overrated at the beginning of the season. He proved me wrong, which I talked about last week, but I still think he's probably vastly overrated as a 4th-year guy who's just now, really.
I think he's fine. He is a flawed player. He's a flawed. I didn't think that he would ascend this high, to the point where people are talking about him going in the first round. But man, any route that you need to have him where he actually needs to like come back to the quarterback or change his direction, like he just does. If you want to run him on drags across the street and then him use his like train like momentum to go bully people, that's fine. Slants, that's fine. Comeback goes. He's not really a contested catcher. I've seen, Rodney Johnson is a cornerback here. I've seen plenty of cornerbacks lock him up. But I did trade Chris Bell. Now that trade ended up being terrible, but I did trade Chris Bell on the backs of this hype earlier this year, and I have him in Chris Bell is a player that the Devy and C2C community have known for a while, coming out of like Alabama or something like that. He was the one guy that put up 150 and 2 touchdowns on Travis Hunter when they were both in high school. So if you did hold that chip for this long, you're getting a good return now because he was just a 3-star guy, and now you're getting some equity there.
I mean, I think at this point we've figured out that everyone has put at 200 yards up against Travis Hunter.
The big wide receivers, yeah. Elike Mayor, he had trouble with him too. Tedero McMillan he's had trouble with all the big wide receivers.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that didn't get discussed enough about him as like a prospect and everything like that, but enough about Travis Hunter. I went on to the Dynasty Hot Seat podcast yesterday and talked about Chris Bell, and I could not remember the wide receiver that was with him last year that got drafted in like the 5th or 6th round or whatever in the NFL, and it's because he's become absolutely nothing, and it's Ja'Cory Brooks.
Ja'Cory Brooks. Yeah,
I could not remember his name when I was on the podcast, and it was pissing me off, but obviously after the fact I remembered it. Ja'Cory Brooks already did a better job of being Chris Bell in his senior season than Chris Bell has done, and then he went and got drafted like the 6th round in the NFL draft and has done absolutely nothing as a wide receiver. Why are we excited about Chris Bell? I don't get it at all.
They're different. They're completely different players. I mean, Chris Bell. People get excited about these guys who are going to go to the NFL Combine and be size-adjusted freaks. And Chris Bell is one of them. That doesn't mean that he's a complete football player or that he's an alpha or anything like that, but that's the reason.
Oh, that's fine. The size speed thing never really gets me because how often does that actually play into it? Like, how many people told us that Tet McMillan couldn't be Tet McMillan this year because he wasn't fast enough or whatever it was, and then guess what? He's a stud because he was a stud in college. I don't care about RAS score and all that crap. Get the hell out of here with your fucking RAS score. Aaron, did you give us your opinion on this one?
Yes, I did.
Okay, then we are good. Actually, you were trying to come up with another one. Did you have to scrap the whole plan or what?
I'm going to go a fun one here, but just rapid fire through you guys. Bo Jackson, Ohio State running back. Ja'Cory Moore, Oregon wide receiver. So a couple of freshmen who have been playing pretty well this season. Or you could go with the safe Jordan Addison, Vikings wide receiver at the NFL level. Very interesting with the J.J. McCarthy performance of late, right? So Bo Jackson, Ja'Cory Moore, Jordan Addison. Go, Andy.
Oh, man, me? I like Bo Jackson and Ja'Cory Moore. And I feel like Jordan Addison, his ceiling is always going to be wide receiver 2, no matter what. So I would probably swing for the fences on either Jackson or Moore. I would lean... Man, I really like Bo Jackson, but I think I would still lean to Ja'Cory Moore at this point in time. And then I would probably, I guess, trade Bo Jackson, if we're just going 1, 2, 3. And then, Jordan Addison, like I said, I like the guy. I liked him coming out of college, obviously. I just don't think that the top level ceiling is there for him in his current situation. Something would have to change. So that's how I would have it right now.
Man, this is a hard one. This is really a hard one for me because, I don't know that I've seen enough from Ja'Cory Moore yet. And Bo Jackson is very vanilla from a toolbox perspective, in my opinion, at least at this level of his career. That being said, I think he's going to be at Ohio State and get. I think I guess I think that there's a chance that Bo Jackson is a really good CFF guy in the years to come, but maybe not translate to the NFL. But if he is productive from a CFS perspective, he could get his value could be artificially inflated because he is at Ohio State. So, man, I think Addison is the one that's easy to cut. And I actually had a chance to take Bo Jackson in a lot of drafts, and it was between him and Quincy Porter. And I took Quincy Porter everywhere over Bo Jackson. But here, I think I'm going to take more. I'm going to take more, and I'll trade Jackson.
I don't like how much I'm agreeing with Felix on this podcast because I really don't. It's actually hurting my soul. But I honestly don't think that Bo Jackson is a special running back. I think that he's getting pushed up, and because we have a lack of talent at the position right now. But and that's not to hate on the player or anything like that. He's doing fine, but fine isn't stud. And I think DeCorian Moore will be a stud when it's all said and done. He's my wide receiver 2 in that class, so I believe in him. And yes, there's some question marks about JJ McCarthy and everything with Jordan Addison, but I mean, Jordan Addison could be on a different team soon. He's not locked into anything. They obviously are going to always keep or try to keep Justin Jefferson. So I mean, does that mean that Jordan Addison gets pushed out or traded to another team or cut or whatever it is? I'm not saying that's a given. I have no idea, but I think I would go. In this instance, I would go Jordan Addison. We've already seen what he can do. He's a touchdown scorer in the NFL. I'm going Jordan Addison. Obviously, if he goes and becomes a wide receiver 1 for a team somewhere else, then the ceiling's going to be the roof at that point. Then I'm going to Corey Moore, and then Bo Jackson just doesn't really do it for me. I'm perfectly fine just cutting him. Although, like Felix said, for CFF purposes, obviously he's going to score you points. He's going to do all that kind of stuff. But for NFL purposes, I'm kind of out.
Very interesting, guys. Thanks for your opinions on that. And I seem to like Bo Jackson maybe a little bit more than you guys. I can understand some of the concerns with the nuance and maybe the development as a runner, but he also has a couple more years to put all that together. He's making a case for a big-time college running back over the next 2 years. DeCorian Moore has not quite put it all together yet, but he's a freshman. He could really grow, but Jordan Addison has put it together for 2 years as a top 24 wide receiver at the NFL level. And then this year, I mean, when he came back from suspension after the first 3 games, he was really good. For quite a few of those games, there's a couple lulls, right, where he didn't score touchdowns, didn't get a ton of targets as he's dealing with this quarterback uncertainty. And this last game really puts a sour taste in our mouths. But let's not give up on Jordan Addison. I don't mind the way that you guys ranked it at all, but want to stick up for my Addison guy there too.
All right, so real quick, this is 3 college players, so this is kind of cheating the system. But one of these players is going to the NFL this year, we're assuming. So I'm kind of getting ahead of the game here. And I just want to know, because I know how I have it ranked here in Debbie Beth. Jordan Davison, freshman running back, Bo Jackson, freshman running back, and Justice Haynes, not freshman running back. How are we keep trade cut on those 3 players?
I'll go, I guess. I'll keep Haynes just because I feel like he's already secured his value. I'm gonna trade Bo Jackson. I'm with Aaron. I kind of like Bo Jackson. I think he's got a good big time run rate. I think he's gonna be explosive once C.J. Donaldson moves on, and he's gonna have, it seems like, that backfield to himself. He doesn't have to worry about James Peoples taking any work from him or anything like that. And then I will cut Jordan Davison. And no disrespect to Davison, but it seems like he's going to be in a split backfield, and I talked about it earlier when we talked about him and De'Aaron Hill. Like, I'll take the ceiling play with De'Aaron Hill if we're talking about the 2 guys in the Oregon backfield. I think that De'Aaron Hill gives you that bigger play upside, even though Davison has shown us that he has that in his toolbox, which I guess I wasn't expecting. But I just think Hill would be somebody that I would prefer over him. So that's how, out of those three that you gave, that's how I'd have it.
Justice Haynes was my number one running back in his class, like very, very easily. I had him over Cedric Baxter. Now I know Cedric Baxter had the injury that he had, but I thought Cedric Baxter was just a big athlete, kind of like Bo Jackson, and I thought that Justice Haynes was the better, nuanced actual running back, even though he probably wouldn't test as well as Baxter. We had him on the show, him and his dad. I'm a big fan of Justice Haynes. I saw him recently comped to Mark Ingram, and I actually don't have a problem with that comp. If Mark Ingram played in had a backfield to himself, he would have been a better fantasy asset than he was. But Mark Ingram, kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Don't have a problem with that. So I'm keeping Justice Haynes, man. And this is tough because Jordan Davison is the type of running back that I've always liked. I like big running backs. I always have. He's what, 6'2", 35, something like that. So I really want to. I can't keep both of them. I'm sorry. I have to trade one of them. I guess. Yeah, I'll have to cut one of them. Dang. I guess I'm cutting Davidson then because between the value between him and Jackson, like I don't want to. I want to keep Haynes and F this game. I'm keeping Davidson. I'm keeping Haynes. And I'm trading Bo Jackson. I'm not cutting either one of these dudes. I'm keeping those two. I'm trading Bo Jackson.
You could just be lazy and put 1, 2, 3 on there, I guess. But yes. Yeah. No, I'll go with Justice Haynes first. But though that injury of late, that actually makes this, I'm a little bit more doubtful on that. He may not return, it looks like, for the regular season. We don't know what maybe the future looks like for Haynes. Hopefully pretty good with the foot, but we just know how those can be tricky. Not saying it will be a lingering issue. I don't even know technically what is going on. I didn't hear any details from that injury procedure, etc., with his foot. But still, I'm going Haynes at the top there. I'm going Bo Jackson next. Bo Jackson, he has done more as far as a rusher, as far as a receiver than Jordan Davidson has. And I view that Oregon rushing system as, they're a well-oiled machine, right? They could put anybody back there. It could be Whittington, it could be Deer Hill, it could be Jordan Davidson, and they'll look really good. yeah, exactly. Except for G5 guys, but I am taking Bo Jackson ahead of Jordan Davidson, I guess, for that reason. I think he's done more as a receiver. I get that Ohio State also has a pretty good system, right? But Bo Jackson is thriving within that, showing he's their reliable back. And then Haynes, he's been a stud this season. It's just the injury, so I will still take him number one.
Give me Jordan Davison every day of the week. That's my baby. He is number one. Keeping Jordan Davison. I'm trading Bo Jackson, and I'm cutting Justice Haynes. I already gave my comp. Felix had the Mark Ingram. My comp for Justice Haynes is Kenneth Walker III. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it also kind of paints a picture of it's not the greatest thing either. So I have a feeling it's going to be a very similar thing for Justice Haynes when it's all said and done. And honestly, I hope he's healthy. I hope everything's great. I hope he goes to the NFL. But could we be dealing with a Blake Corum level of, he goes back to school. They try to put it all together and do all that kind of stuff. So who knows? And I'm definitely not saying that's absolutely what's happening. I'm not an insider. I have no idea what these guys are thinking. But, if there's that injury, if he doesn't necessarily know if he's done enough to get the draft capital he wants and all that kind of stuff, does he go back to school for another year and hope for the best there? So I'm just getting nods and everything. So I think that is it. That we're at the hour and a half mark. We did have a comment here at 270 videos. Oleg Bade talk. Sorry if I missed it. And yes, we did talk about Donovan Oleg Bode. I don't know why I have a problem saying that last name. But yes, we did talk about him earlier. Go back to the beginning of the pod. We talked about all of those freshman wide receivers. We're not going to talk about it more at this point because we did a pretty good job covering that. But Felix, thank you so much for coming on. It was great bringing you out of retirement. Are we going to see you anytime soon on any other pods, or are you just kind of freelancing and doing what you please at this point?
No, I don't. It'll be spot duty for me. No, I don't think that there's anything regular.
All right. Well, it was a lot of fun. I know we always poke fun. We always have fun, but I do, like you said, there's only so many people in this community. And so even if we disagree and everything, it's such a great community. And I love each and every one of you guys. And so I appreciate you coming on, Felix, even if even if I just completely owned you with the Garrett Nussmeier thing, I didn't mean to, do that.
Garrett Nussmeier, I was not a Garrett Nussmeier champion. I don't have Garrett Nussmeier. I'm just making a point about, we needed the opinion on Garrett Nussmeier in 2022.
Well, so. But I mean, I did it in 2023. Was that not early enough? I
did it in 2024.
Did it really have to be 2022?
In 2024, where he's 100% roster. That's all I'm saying is I mean, thanks, but I already had him on my team.
Well,
actually, I didn't have him on it. I don't have Garrett Nussmeier anywhere.
I will try to be better. There's still Felix is not one of the loud ones on Nussmeier, but he just gave me some crap about not being early enough on it, and so I have to have fun here. But,
and by the way, I've shot down so many highly rated players. I mean, from Quinn Ewers to Kamar Wheaton to Raleek Brown, even though he's doing well. I mean, it's I have my process, and it doesn't always lead
you were the original Quinn Ewers hater. I kind of took that after you stopped podding as much. I kind of took that flame from you or whatever. But yeah, you were definitely the OG of why is this guy rated as a perfect prospect and all that kind of stuff?
Look, at risk. Listen, look. Andy's tired. Aaron's tired. But what do you guys think of Jaron Kiawe Sagapugatele?
JKS, is he going to follow the money is the question. Head coach is fired now.
From a talent perspective.
Yeah. I probably am the highest on him out of this podcast, just from our conversations previously. And I don't even love him. He is QB 11 for me in the landscape, maybe QB 12. Depends what I want to do with CJ Carr at Notre Dame. But yeah, JKS, he's got a lot of upside, and I recognize that I was not high enough on him coming out of high school, but he was a serious recruit, right? I mean, pretty high-end guy, so.
I didn't realize how much higher I am on JKS than Aaron. He has him all the way down at QB 11. I have him at QB 10. I'm just substantially higher on JKS. I mean, holy crap. Dude,
it's hard. It's hard for me to keep Jaron Kiawe Sagapugatele out of the number one quarterback spot. It's including Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, guys that I like. I think that he's the best passer in college football. Now, he's not always consistent. He's a freshman, but I think that he's the best pass. He is the best thrower of the football in college football, and for that reason, it's hard for me to keep him out of my number one spot. But I find it easy once I see something to have real conviction on it, immediately. So, and I do on him.
He's so fun. He is an absolute blast to watch. His arm, his ability to place balls, deep balls, whatever the case is. Yeah, he's got some real touch there.
And he's one that you can't box score scout because you have to go watch, them play UNC, and they drop 3 touchdown passes in that game. And their wide receiver core. I mean, you just can't have balls just hit you in the hand or hit you in the face mask or hit you off the helmet as many times. At points he's making them look like the little giants out there. But yeah, it's hard. I switch between he and Mendoza as my quarterback. One is just ask me on a different day, but I think that he's the best passer in college football.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for pronouncing his name. That's the first time that's happened on this podcast. I know we've tried it before, but I kind of have to recuse myself with these freshman quarterbacks because, I don't punish freshmen for not playing, and I'm not going to punish a freshman for like throwing 9 interceptions while he is playing in his true freshman year. So I don't know what to make of it. He's brand new, and I feel like what you're saying is true. Like these guys were dropping his passes, so he's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna have to pepper DeJesus with these short underneath routes to get what I need to have happen to win these games. So if he's around, if he's put him on a team that has like Alabama or Clemson's wide receiver core, and I'm sure he would do so much better. Which I think that's probably what's going to happen this season is he's going to move on from Cal and go somewhere that will pay him significantly and also have the supporting cast for him to be successful. So I don't want to say that I'm out on JKS, but I'm a numbers guy. Right now the numbers aren't like screaming 101 in 2027 or anything like that, but I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm out on JKS or anything, but that's just how I see it right now.
No, he's right. He's hitting a lot of the thresholds you like to see, like big time throw rate and all that kind of stuff. I will say he does not run hardly nearly enough, and unfortunately, that's going to be a consistent thing with that class. You got your CJ Carr, or no, no, I'm sorry, JKS is in the 28 class, right? Okay, so he's actually in the class after, but we're dealing with CJ Carr showing up in the 27 class. You got JKS. You have a lot of these guys, and they're not really running anymore. So we had this we had a time period where it was like all rushing QBs and so much fun, and Drake May and Caleb Williams and whoever else. And now we're kind of getting back to like a lot of these pocket passers. It's weird how we kind of go through a lot of those cycles and everything. But even we can say like the only rushing quarterback we might really have right now is like Arch Manning, and that's a little wild to think of when you're looking at these players. I guess Julian Sand runs a little bit, but I don't know. I still don't know exactly how I feel about him. But we are at over the hour and a half mark. It's been a lot of fun. Felix, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, campus2canton.com is a big deal for you. It's a big deal for us. We mention it all the time. Sometimes it's in fun, sometimes it's in passing, but obviously it is a resource that I think we all subscribe to. And so, obviously I believe you are still an owner, if that is correct. And so, do you have anything you need to pimp out or anything like that before we get out of here?
No, I mean, people ask me this. I'm like, you hit me up on Twitter. I can give my cell phone number out, which I've done that on podcasts before.
No, all right. Well, Felix is a great person to talk to. He is a knowledgeable player in the game, and so we appreciate him coming on. Andy, this was all your doing, so you are up for words of wisdom for us getting out of here because you made me talk to my arch nemesis tonight.
Well, first of all, again, yeah, thank you, Felix, for coming on. But how about you guys agreeing with each other? I feel like I'm like the negotiator, the olive branch.
So much
everybody's happy, and maybe you guys can look at each other in a new light, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Maybe we will, or maybe I'll edit it to make it sound like I never actually agreed with him in the first place, and then we will continue with our beloved feud here. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This was great. We probably didn't even get to nearly as many Cornerstone rankings as we probably could have or should have or anything like that. We'll probably do another one in the near future to get into some more players, because I definitely had some that I could have probably mentioned as well, but we're already over that moment, and you can hear my dog. He is pissed. My wife's out of town, and so he does not like that I'm recording when he's by himself, and he is not happy right now. So we appreciate you guys listening. We will be back in your ears as soon as possible, but for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. See you guys.